Welcome to the question of the week. I'm your host, Amelia Borland, occupational therapist and owner of Higher Standards Caregiver Training. And today's question is about stroke recovery. So before we get started, please do keep in mind that this is for educational purposes only. It's not a substitute for health or medical advice or a therapeutic relationship. So if that's something that you or a person you're caring for needs, please make sure you are reaching out to get that appropriate help. Okay, so this question came in from a new caregiver whose family member recently came home from the hospital or from rehab after having a stroke. And the question is, my loved one recently came home from rehab after having a stroke, and I'm wondering how long it's going to take for the person I care for to recover. So this is a big question, actually. And we'll talk about this on a couple of different levels. First, one of the things that we need to understand that's important about something like stroke recovery is that stroke recovery can look very different for different people. So often when we say recovery, we might be thinking returning entirely to the previous level of functioning that someone had before they had a stroke. However, of course, unfortunately, not all stroke survivors do that. And how much recovery someone gets, ultimately how long it takes, really depends on the severity of the stroke to begin with, as well as the care that's provided immediately afterward and the amount of rehabilitation that person receives. There is another factor involved, though, which is, of course, the natural recovery of the brain and how far that progresses forward, which we don't, unfortunately, have full control over. So there isn't, unfortunately, there's not a specific answer to that question. The best person to answer the question for how long a stroke recovery is anticipated to be, or what that recovery is going to look like, is really and truly the medical care team for that individual, because the answer can vary extremely widely. That said, there are some general guidelines that we as healthcare providers kind of expect when we're looking at the progression of someone's recovery. And I made a little chart here to kind of make it easy to see and understand. So super simple. This is a quick little kind of line graph here. And on one side, we have recovery. So that's the amount of recovery someone is getting, how much better they're getting, closer to their prior level of function. And then on the bottom side, we have the time since the stroke. So in general, you can see here, we expect to see most of the recovery that what someone will have after a stroke within the first year. And that recovery is generally most rapid during the first 6 months after the stroke. After that first 6 months, recovery tends to slow down a little bit, but it does continue up to that first year. Now, that's not to say that people do not continue to improve or recover after it's been a year. 1 year is not like a magic timeline number. It's not an absolute line in the sand. It doesn't mean that a person who's had a stroke will not continue to change, to improve, to evolve over time in terms of what they're able to do and their overall level of functioning. That's, of course, not at all the case. It's simply that after that 1 year mark, that recovery and those changes tend to go a lot slower. So again, basically what we look at here is initially we see the most recovery in that first 6 months, and we continue to see recovery up to the first year. And after that, that recovery gets a lot slower, or it tends to plateau. And again, I have to reiterate that stroke recovery is really complex, and there are many, many factors involved. So where we may see some people recover in a matter of days, for other people, it may be more like a matter of years. And so the best people to talk about with the anticipated length of recovery and what that recovery is going to look like is absolutely the professionals on the healthcare team. talk with your doctor. Hopefully there's a physiatrist, that's a rehab doctor that you can speak to, but also make sure you're speaking with the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, if there's one involved as well, in order to help get the best idea of what that's going to look like. And of course, also how you can best make plans for whatever that recovery is going to look like as well. Okay, so that was this week's answer to the question of the week about the anticipated length of time for stroke recovery. Please make sure to submit your questions. You can do it either by leaving a comment underneath the video, or you can also go ahead and submit your question anonymously. I know we don't always want to share our stuff publicly, and that is a-okay. You can submit your question anonymously. If I'm getting more questions than I can possibly answer, then I'll do my best to connect you with an answer or resources in cases where I can't actually do that. So don't forget to submit your question for the caregiver question of the week. I hope that everyone is healthy and well. Until next time, y'all, please take care. Bye.